and welcome to UC Today. I'm Susie Harrison, Head of Content. And today I'm delighted to be joined on this big UC update by Paul Holden, who is Vice President of EMEA Sales at CallTower. So thank you for joining me, Paul.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Susie.
So let's start. Today we're going to do a deep dive into CallTower, into you, what you guys have got up and coming, what you're excited about, what your customers are excited about. But let's start by learning more about you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Yeah, sure. So Paul Holden, I live in Northwest London. I joined British Telecom as a 16-year-old back in the mid 80s from school, had a 20-year career at BT, and I've always stayed in telecoms, both in the channel, more recently in the vendor community, and more, even more recently in cloud. So I've kind of been in the industry for about 40 years now, from when not everyone even had a phone in their home, to obviously what you're able to do today on a device and data and everything that goes with it. So I've lived through all the iterations of telecommunications.
Wow, so with that history, you must have, seen a real scope of
Yeah,
advancement. So what are you
correct.
really excited about in your role and in your sector?
Yeah, so I think, talking about the evolution of technology and the fact that now, even pre the pandemic, we were probably all still a bit shy about using video, and now it's kind of flipped on its head, where if someone's not got their camera on, they kind of look odd.
Yeah.
So I think the most exciting thing now is how you can leverage the investment in the desktop, in the technologies that enable this kind of communication, where we're in different locations and we could be anywhere in the world and being able to have this, kind of meeting, collaborate, chat, make phone calls, and being able to be productive and efficient, but also create value within that whole ecosystem of technology that's at our fingertips now.
Yeah, and also obviously exacerbated by COVID as well, that
Yeah,
sort of put things into play that weren't there.
yeah. What COVID did
Right.
was create a compelling event for the cloud and for work anywhere. And if you give people the right tools, they can still be productive. So, that was a huge shift. The trend was already happening. It just put it on
Yeah.
steroids because, businesses had no choice. They had to enable people to work from home and give them the right tools and access to the right systems and technologies in order to be able to function and and continue to provide customer service, to continue to drive revenue growth depending on the vertical that they operated in. So for technology companies, it was a huge hockey stick in terms of adoption.
Yeah, and I know in the commercial world, obviously, no 2 days are the same, but do you want to just give us a bit of an insight into what a typical day looks like for you?
Oh, blimey, yeah. I don't think there's kind of any typical. So I kind of have our weekly rhythm. So Monday might start with a team meeting. So, is everyone still alive from the weekend? And, really just reviewing what happened last week, what are the key things on the agenda for this week, key meetings, customer interactions, any help that anyone needs. And then I do that with the EMEA team. And then we'll also have, catch ups with the marketing team and other disciplines. So there's kind of what I call the internal rhythm. But then, a typical day will obviously involve quite a number of, video meetings because, customers, again, we deal with customers that are multi-location, and therefore they will have different stakeholders at different sites. So typically they'll be done, over video, or certainly the initial meetings to help with the qualification on both sides. And then it may involve, going to site, going to a customer meeting. It might involve going to an event. There's lots of technology events, industry events, analyst events. So it'll be a blend of all those things. But I would say probably on average, I'll be on these types of meetings 7 or 8 times a day. and then there's what I call the formal meetings, ones that get booked in your diary, and then the informal ones where you're collaborating on the fly with your colleagues because things are happening real time. And yeah, if I probably added in those as well, it could be, it could end up with about 12 different meetings. And the important part of that is to make sure that you're being productive and not just joining for the sake of it. And then you've got trainings, and you can make yourself a busy fool by joining everything, and it's really just making sure that you're making the best use of your time and working smart.
Yeah, I think it's in our business we have a real culture of meetings with purpose. So
Yeah,
everything has to have an agenda and actions, because otherwise we're just you can go around in circles very easily, can't you?
100% true.
Yeah. So can you give us your best elevator pitch? Can you tell us in a nutshell about CallTower?
Yeah, sure. So CallTower is the only voice provider that connects into Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and WebEx, and also connects into the contact center. So we're able to federate the voice network from back office users into the CX users. So we're able to leverage the investment that companies have made on those free video collaboration platforms, utilize the calling features within them by connecting them to the PSTN, and also connect the contact center in as well. So you've got one federated voice platform that is agnostic. So if an end user business might be using Microsoft, and in a couple of years they might decide, actually, no, we're going to move to Zoom, for example, because we've already got the numbers ported into our platform, because we've already got that foundational voice platform, we can just change the connector. So from an end user perspective, they can migrate from one technology to the other, but we've already done all the heavy lifting and provided that connectivity. The same in the CCAS contact center space. So in effect, we're providing the connectivity and the network, but we're agnostic on one side, on the UCAS side, on the CCAS side, and then we kind of connect it all together with our own proprietary software called Connect. And that's where all the numbers are ported into. Customers can see their billing, and all the analytics are all stored, moves, adds, and changes. So we've got a voice platform held together by Connect that's agnostic on the on the UCAS and the CCAS side.
And sort of beyond that pitch, is there anything unique about your company culture, sort of
Uh,
behind the scenes?
Actually, it's a good call out. So our culture is built on a book that was written by a gentleman called Patrick Lencioni. Now, I might have got the surname spelling wrong, but you can find it on Amazon, and it's called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And
Okay.
therefore our culture's built on obviously the functional basis of those five dysfunctions. And so it starts with trust. So if we have a very strong foundation built on trust, then you can have positive conflict. So we could disagree, but agree to disagree, but have the right intentions to progress something because we trust one another. And then that also involves, accountability. So if you say you're going to do something, you're accountable, and your colleagues hold you accountable. And then the execution, making things happen. And then ultimately, if you get those right, the results should come. So it's kind of built on this triangle of these five dysfunctions. But if you don't have trust, the rest of it falls apart because conflict then becomes, unresolvable. And therefore, so it's very fundamentally built on this. So we use this five dysfunctions of a team, written by Patrick Lencioni. And then there's another book called The Advantage, which the board create our playbook, and our playbook is like our mission statement, our values, and it also then transpires into, the key activities that are going to help the company meet its objectives in the, the short, medium, and long term. So the five dysfunctions, the playbook are how our culture is built, led obviously by our CEO Brett England, who's very passionate about the culture and making sure that everyone fits in.
That's really interesting. And how does the CEO ensure that that culture permeates, through all the teams? Because that's
Yes.
quite a difficult thing to do, isn't it,
It,
from the
it,
top
it
down?
is. This was, culture's everything. And, having been in the industry 40 years, I've experienced lots of different cultures. Even when
Yeah.
I was at BT, it was 20 years, but every 2 or 3 years I'd, move around or have a different line manager. And obviously I was, a lot younger then as well. So when you go through the interview process to join Call Tower, it's the cultural part, the cultural fit is a very strong element of all the conversations that you have with the hiring manager, maybe with some future peers, and Brett personally interviews everybody as well, just to make sure that there are no red flags. But back to the trust element, ultimately it's the hiring manager makes the final decision. But then we have an onboarding process which we use Myers-Briggs MBTI, and we also use Working Genius. And that is not oh, do we keep them or not? That's more of a way of, you know, getting over these five dysfunctions, the advantage, making sure that people understand that and they buy into it. And then obviously the Working Genius. So, if let's just say, for example, me and you, Susie, had a difference of opinion, and you were pulling something one way and I was pulling it another, I can go online, look at your Working Genius profile and go, I now understand why you might think that way, or you might look at mine and go, and then you kind of start to go, and I guess it's tapping into emotional intelligence. You've got some facts, or you've kind of got some deeper understanding as to why that person might operate or think that way. So you can, using a bit of EI rather than AI, actually start to address it. So that's kind of how we kind of build the culture. But what's really interesting, if somebody doesn't fit in, then you can find that peers and can give them coaching and mentoring, but you would stand out like a sore thumb if you didn't
Right.
meet that culture. And I mean, I read the two books before I joined because I knew that that was a key component, and so it's the strongest culture that I've ever worked in, and we're about 260 employees. We've recently done an acquisition in Canada with a company called Honoria, and obviously, the more we grow, the harder it is going to be to protect. But it
Yeah.
starts at the top, and Brett is massive on the culture, and I don't see him letting it slip.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a real challenge, especially if
It
you're
will,
dealing with, global challenges
but it's
and
interesting because
culture.
even when I've joined a year ago. I was the first person in Europe, and I've now hired, we're a team of six. And obviously, you trust people's experience. I think gone are the days of inviting people in to do hour-long presentations, and, through social media, through your network, you get to find out if somebody's as good or as they portray, or the type of skills you're looking for related to the job. But then you kind of really focus on, are they going to be the right cultural fit?
Yeah, and I think it's so important because we are all adults, and
Yeah,
I think we expect people to behave like adults, don't we? And that's just the basic
yeah,
assumption.
of
And
course. And
usually
I think,
people live to that, don't they?
there's the fundamentals, but, even on a daily basis, things can happen, and, it's easy to react emotionally, and you
Yeah.
get people that act emotionally, people that go quiet, and ultimately you got to kind of work your way through that. And, the trust thing plays heavily, and, helps resolve a lot.
And how do you guys approach the market? Can you sort of explain a bit about your partner
Yeah.
ecosystem and the go-to-market strategies?
Yeah, sure. So in the US, we work through what they call the master agent model. So vendors sign up to these master agents, and the likes of Avant, Alaris, Intelisys. There's many more that are US based. Vendors sign up there, and then those master agents are trusted advisors, and they work with a number of channel partners who ultimately generate leads from end users that they register into this ecosystem, into this master agent ecosystem. And then the master agents will say, they'll do some qualification and they'll say, that's a good fit for CallTower. And then they might pass the lead through, and then we pick it up. So that's a big, what I call lead generation engine, that whole master agency. And we also
Hmm.
sell direct in the US as well. But, if you come to UK and EMEA, obviously being a much smaller country, we've had challenges in the past where if you sell direct and via channel, it can cause conflict if you're turning up in the same opportunity. So we've kind of gone channel first in EMEA, and Avant are the master agent that also still have presence within EMEA. So we work very closely with Avant, who are the master agent, and then they give us access to their channel partners that might be big Microsoft managed service providers or big Cisco service providers or that, and then they will own the end customer or have already transacted and providing services. They will hear, we know our customer, is coming to end of contract with their telephony platform, whether it be on-prem or whether it be a legacy proprietary cloud-based system. And they go to Avant and they say, look, my customer's got 500 users. They may have implemented Teams. They're considering, using Teams as their phone system as well. And then Avant would qualify and they say, oh yeah, that's a good opportunity for CallTower. And then it gets registered. Then we engage with the end user and then co-sell with the partner. So that's a big ecosystem that is actually starting to grow again. We have another partner called Nuvius. We're a traditional distributor, and now also have adopted an agency model, and they have a number of channel partners that we can have access to. And then we're growing that ecosystem as well, talking to some of the UK's largest managed service providers, with Zoom, also with Cisco as well. So it's just, exploring where we can add value, trying not to compete with the race to the bottom because, calling only is a bit like water, gas, and electricity. It's a
Yeah.
utility that, the price point keeps dropping. So we kind of try and stay in the realms of our what we call our ideal customer profile. So where we win is businesses with 100 employees or more that are multi-location. Because if they're
Okay.
multi-location, they're more likely to have deployed one of the top three UC platforms, Zoom, Cisco, WebEx, and Microsoft Teams, and therefore it's a better profile for us to then not just connect the PSTN, the calling network, but they may also then need, if they're in healthcare or finance, they probably need compliant call recording. If they're in retail, they may need real-time analytics. All of them may want some kind of CRM integration. In mobility is proving to be, a rising star where you can dial from your native dialer, your native app in your iPhone or Android device. It becomes an extension of your Microsoft Teams, for example. So that means rather than giving out your mobile number and going off plan, you're on plan because all the data's stored because you're dialing out over the Teams ecosystem, for example. So multi-location, businesses over 100 employees, international gets even more juicy for us because the more complexity fits within our model because we are agnostic and we do have all these extra services that we can provide.
And so once you've started working with a customer, what's your typical implementation strategy? What does that look like?
Right. So from a sales cycle, that can be, pre-contract signature. So through initial engagement, explaining our proposition, qualifying, kind of understanding, the compelling event, what problem you're going to solve, or efficiencies you're going to create, the return on investment, all those kind of good things. That typically, depending on the size of the customer, can be as quick as 2 months. Typically, we're seeing about 4 months at the moment. Because cloud can be adopted much faster, it's, we're not seeing so many long, back in the day, 18-month sales cycles. So, and then once it's signed, implementation, again, because it's cloud, the number porting can take anything from 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the country. But we've had users up and live within a week. If they needed new numbers, for example, or 2 weeks where they needed porting. My advice to customers is that planning is everything. You know, the whole thing about if we don't plan it properly, then creates more risk. So typically, it's kind of 2 to 4 weeks of planning, and then we kind of go live.
And then are you delivering ongoing customer support?
Sure, yeah. So
Sort of troubleshoot and
implemented. So we offer 24/7 support. Follow the sun. So we've got Knox in the US. We've also got Knock in the Philippines as well. So we've got that 24/7 support. Depending on where organization exists. So most of our customers' headquarters at the moment are US based and European based, but they may have offices, in South America, in the UAE, right globally. So that's why 24/7 support is fundamental.
yeah. And when you're having conversations with customers at the moment,
Yeah,
what are the topics that are you finding that are coming up a lot? Key challenges. What's keeping people up at night? Are there
yeah.
any sort of themes to that?
So I think there's two things that customers kind of put in their kind of risk factor. One is Call Tower, we've not heard of them before, or we're familiar with others in the market, but that's usual. I worked for previous companies that had come from the US, and it was exactly the same story. And then you roll the clock forward 3 or 4 years, and then they become a known entity. But one of the things is, so there's that giving them confidence around who we are. Given we've been around for over 20 years and are platinum partners with all those UC platforms, I think it's just building that trust. And then the second risk for them is the giving up their legacy platform and trusting that Teams, Zoom, or WebEx can be the phone system. So they often, there is oh well, if I get rid of all that and I enable that, and what if it doesn't work, or what if it goes down? That risk. But the good thing about Call Tower is we've got business continuity and redundancy and resilience because we have a backup network. So
Right.
if you were using Teams and Teams went down, we have a single click failover, which then utilizes our backup network, which is built on MetaSwitch. So one click, and then you can still make and receive phone calls. And again, that's another USP for Call Tower. So we're underpinning it. So we overcome both those challenges in that way because of our proposition and because of our 20+ year heritage.
I think there's always that nervousness, isn't there? Because it's a bit of a leap into the unknown.
It is, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think it's not uncommon.
No, and I've been through it before, and
Yeah.
and yeah, it's as I say, in 2 or 3 years' time, Cool Tower will become a household brand name. I'm pretty sure because people will come home from work and they say, "Oh yeah, we use Teams for powered by Cool Tower." It's just
Right.
one of the things, but in some respects, we don't need to be famous because really we're providing that voice layer, that connectivity. The
Yeah.
technology is agnostic around the edges. We're providing obviously the implementation, the support, which are key components. But for the end user, they'll just be using Microsoft, which they'll be used to. They'll be using, OneDrive and all the other M365 and all the other tools, and they'll just click a button and make a phone call, right? Straight from their
Yeah.
team's environment or from their CRM. They won't care as long as it works and helps them be productive.
And how is CallTower approaching innovation? How does the company come up with new ideas and sort of generate feedback loops?
Sure. Yes. So within my team, I have like a lead solution consultant who also is an ex-CTO of technology companies, and he feeds and reports straight in also to our SVP of product. So locally, if we see technologies we think could be good fit for our portfolio, they're fed in through Ryan up into our Doug, our SVP of product. But they also, Doug's got a big product team based in the US, so they're constantly, looking at the market, making sure that our portfolio is fit for purpose, it's current. At the moment, we're obviously, AI is a big trend, so we're looking at how AI can help our portfolio, from predictive resourcing through calling, through analytics. There's so many different areas where it could help highlight areas of improvement or risk. And obviously there's the AI we're probably all used to using now, where you might go on a chat session and you deal with the robot for the first few questions. So, that kind of AI has been around. And, if you look at predictive AI, but back to the early days of Amazon and some of the shopping platforms, if you looked at a book a month ago, how many times does that book keep popping back up in your, every time you log on, or even in your email? So there's
Yeah.
been that, and obviously Alexa and Google Hubs and Siri and all these other things. AI has been around actually quite a long time. Now we're trying to fathom how does it best fit in that technology stack, in that how does it aid in the better voice. But so that evolution of product is forever coming on. Compliance, security, all the main topics are all factored in to our portfolio. So it's kind of never stands still, and that's the great thing about being agnostic as well. Because if you have a product and it becomes end of life, or it's outlived its usefulness, unless you've constantly made new products, you're kind of at a bit of a dead end. Whereas if you're providing the connectivity but you're agnostic, you can continue to evolve.
So do you have a, we've obviously discussed AI, which obviously we all have to,
Yeah,
but do you have a sense of any other topics that you guys are really, I guess, leaning into or keeping an eye on, that
yeah,
you think are really going to emerge and provide opportunity for you guys?
yeah. I think compliance is one,
Yeah,
because in the financial sector, there's no choice. But
yeah,
compliance now has gone beyond just voice. Now it's on everything you do. You've got, email, you've got social media. There's the what we call the dark IT, because whether businesses like it or not, people are using other tools to interact with colleagues and customers. They're on LinkedIn, they're on so many different platforms. So that's a consideration and opportunity to make sure that, you know, nobody's sharing stuff or confidential stuff in what we call on the dark IT. So compliance and security are key areas of opportunity, and healthcare is another one, because of the huge compelling event and patient care. So, that's another one. But I think AI, demystifying it and breaking it down into small chunks, a bit like, okay, someone just wants to go on a chat and they want to know your opening hours, or just simple things that, high volume, low value, that could just be serviced by a knowledge base, for example. There's some
yeah.
great opportunities there to then take the load off the customer experience center, the contact center, so they can deal with high value tasks, or just give exceptional customer service because they've got all the data brought to them on one single pane of glass. So it's demystifying, but they're all the risks that companies would currently have. It's kind of like trusting the new technologies to also be their calling platform, trusting new companies that they're probably not currently aware of. Then how do they evaluate the compliance, the security, the impact of AI? You could imagine someone going to get a business case approved and going into a boardroom where maybe not everybody sat around a table is into technology and they've got their own stake. Unless it had an AI mentioned somewhere, someone's going to probably question or query it. So it's just covering all those bases. And it was no different when cloud, came around. Everyone was cloud, cloud. And then you say, what is cloud? And people go, actually, I don't really know, but I keep saying it because everyone else does. But basically, it meant that, in simple terms, it was something that connects to the internet. Cloud really
Right.
is the internet, right? Uh, so it's just demystifying it and simplifying it.
Yeah. And if I had to pin you down to name one technology that you think is going to have the biggest impact on your sector in the next, say, 5, 10 years, what would
Okay.
that be?
That's a big question. Uh, that's a huge question.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are. I think certainly for the next 5 years, it's going to be mobility.
Right.
So enabling the smartphones that we now use to become extensions of our desktop from a calling and even a customer experience perspective. So those things still are treated in silos. So I think mobility is a huge opportunity. Customer experience is still a big opportunity because of the number of social channels that people are now using to interact with their customer base, or even B2B with other businesses, and bringing them in to have compliant and secure conversations and interactions on those platforms. I think AI will just filter in under those technologies to, a bit like it does now, give you shortcuts, give you guidance, you know, uh, obviously things like Chat GPT, where you can ask it to build you a draft presentation. These things that, will start if even within the Zoom and WebEx and Teams now, you can use Copilot to summarize meeting notes and create actions. I think you'll just see more of that layered in rather than you
Yeah.
needing to go off and buy something standalone and then have the challenge of integrating it into everything else you use. I think they're just going to be built in as you go.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll keep an eye on it. But thank you so much, Paul, for
That's
joining
okay,
me
my
today.
pleasure.
And thank you to our viewers for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please do like and subscribe to this channel. And of course, keep an eye on uctoday.com, where we cover stories like these and more. And of course, the latest from CallTower. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.